Hello everyone, this is a walkthrough of day one of the Global Virtual Design Sprint, the Design Sprint version that is. If you are looking for the dash, that is a different video. You'll have to go back into the Slack channel to find that. We'll be going through all of the different hours that take up the first day of the GVDS. We'll also go over some optional things you can do. But I'll walk through this very slowly to make sure that we get everything that we need to get to understand what we're supposed to be doing on day one, or at least the first 3 or so hours of your event. So hang tight and enjoy everything that's being presented. And again, if you have any questions about anything you're seeing here, or if you're confused by anything, be sure to look me up on Slack or just message me on LinkedIn. Either way, it'll get to me. So let's get started with configuration and go over what we have over here on the left-hand side. On every single day that we have for the GVDS, there's going to be a section over here where you'll probably want to put in your day and date that you started your virtual design sprint on day one. And you really don't have to change anything here. This is just to outline what you can expect to happen throughout the course of the day, or at least the hours that are coming up, the 3 hours that you're going to be together online, and perhaps some stuff you'll do offline. Over here is a place where you can put your team name. You can also put in the different names of the people that are on the team, as well as the avatars that you have from your kickoff. If you don't have those, you can go ahead and create those as you like using the kickoff mural that was corresponding to your team. If you don't know where that is, you can reach out and I can help you with that too. So this first step here is about preparation. Basically, this is something where I asked to kind of include some problem framing in the default template. But normally that was reserved for the previous week. But if you haven't done that and your team's interested in doing it as part of your design sprint, I've included this here for you. So one of the things that I've done this time around is include a place in the very beginning where you can try an exercise that very much reflects what you would do in the actual hour that's going to be meaningful, meaning that you'll do in your design sprint. So for this one, this particular practice session is to create your own problem statement, a personal one, something that corresponds to something that you're dealing with, a professional challenge of some type. And the way to do this is basically just to claim a spot. Usually there's a color that corresponds to you, depending where you are on the color wheel of your kickoff. You put your avatar here and your name here. And then there's 3 sections. The first one is basically describing the professional challenge that you're dealing with, and just make sure you're comfortable in sharing it. In this section, you can explain the pains and problems you're going through because of what you described in this first paragraph. And then this last section, you're going to construct something as a how might I question. So it's a different than a how might we, it's how might I. And you're asking yourself that question to see, okay, what can I do to change things or move things in the proper direction? All of these particular text boxes are editable, so you just have to click on it to highlight it and start typing something related to your professional challenge or the pains and problems. Then once you're done, you can go in and basically take 60 seconds to explain to your team what your professional challenge is. And you'll be able to do that throughout this section. Again, this is just a warm-up, so it's optional. You don't have to do this. And these practice sessions are all over the place in the GVDS. So this is just a warm-up to prepare you for what's going to happen next. After your practice session, we start with kind of doing a little bit of a review. And seeing if everyone on the team understands the challenge and the audience that you're taking on. And again, you would move your avatar over here as well as put in your name. So there's a little bit of maintenance with every single activity, but if you do that in advance, not a big deal, but you can also do it during the session itself. Put your avatar over here first, and then you're going to put it over into the circle that corresponds best to your understanding of both the challenge and the audience combined. Now, if you're in the yes column, you put your avatar over there, you're like, no, yeah, I know the challenge and the audience, then you're good to go. If you're kind of in the middle or on the no side of things, this is where the I have some questions I like to ask comes into play. And they can be really obvious questions. They could be like, what is the blue economy challenge? Or where are we going to find our target audience at the end of the week for interviews? So you'll have different questions that you can pose here, and you can take some time to basically answer them as a team. I've allotted 10 minutes, but sometimes it takes a little bit more than that. So don't feel pressured if this is just 10 minutes, but really kind of stake this out and get an understanding from the team on where the gaps are and where you need to kind of spend some time as you go through this process. In the next step, I ask everyone to outline the pains and problems that we're trying to address. So we have a good idea of the challenge, but this is a way of kind of getting into the nitty-gritty around what we are going to be eventually focusing on. And there could be a lot of pains and problems. And to anticipate this, I put a lot of boxes here. Now, as you do that, you get a lot of cards on here. You probably look for duplicates, but then you're going to use a categorization I would say a categorization method where it's affinity diagramming. You basically put a category here, and instead of sweets, I probably should just put category, change that a bit, and another category here. But these are examples of categories where you can put these cards. So once you say, let's put sweets back in here just for the sake of example. So sweets, drinks, books. Maybe this is all about entertainment. But once you have these categories kind of outlined here, they're going to reflect the cards that are up here. And eventually you're going to be dragging down cards that fit under these categories. After this, all these cards are done. So you'll take about 3 minutes to fill all of these out. You can expand on these cards. So if you run out of room, you could just basically copy and paste and put these here. And then use like Command or Control D to basically duplicate and put cards all the way across. Totally up to you, whatever you like to do. But eventually they're going to go under here and be categorized. Now, after you get done categorizing them, you'll be able to see them a bit better. You'll basically run a vote to focus on the top 3 problems that come from this. So there's going to be top 3 out of all the cards here. You don't vote on the categories. You just vote on the cards down here. So there should be like maybe one here under books. Maybe there's like one under drinks. Maybe there's, I'd say, 3 under sweets because everyone likes sweets. Maybe one more for books. But no matter where it is, you're going to be holding a voting session to determine which are the top 3 problems you want to focus on. From there, if there are more than 3, you can use this importance meter down here. And the way this works is you put one of the cards that's one of the top votes here, and then everyone uses a mouse vote to either say it's more important or less important than say the other problems that are there. Like, where does it scale in this? And depending on where the mouse votes are, you can drag the box over here and say, well, there's more mouse votes. Mouse is kind of moving in circles over here. And there's more kind of an average between the less and the medium. Maybe there's where this card goes. But eventually, say if you have like 5 winners at the very end of your voting session up here, and you need to use the index. This is usually what it kind of works out to, is that there's a lot in the middle. There's definitely one that doesn't work, and then there's one that kind of leads. And usually you'll have an idea between where things are and how things are in terms of how close they are to the more. You can basically identify which particular cards are going to be your top 3. I usually like to color them to like yellow or something else. Then you can move those over into the top problems here. So if the problem is itchy feet, for example, and another one is, let's say, bad breath, because they're all problems, right? And another problem could be bullies throwing trash at me. So that's your top problem. That one is going to go straight up here at the very top. So you just copy and paste into this box here. Same with bad breath. That's a pretty bad problem sometimes. And itchy feet. Depending on if you're a runner, that may be a really big problem. But anyway, now that you have your problems here from the previous exercise, you're going to write a problem statement for the team to consider. So this is taking into account what the top problems are. You're going to basically, in your own words, describe what you think the challenge is all about, similar to what you did in the practice session. You're going to describe the target audience and the pains and problems they go through. So something up here where you try to describe what the team perceived as the main problems for this particular audience. And then the last one, instead of how might I, you're going to do how might we. So that's a sentence that you use to have an open question about possibilities. And you're going to put that there as kind of like your summative of everything that's been read here. And you're asking the question, where can we go from here? How can we make this better? So every person on the team is going to write their own problem statement. And they'll take, again, about 60 seconds to 2 minutes to read off of these. Then you'll hold a silent vote. And I believe in Mural, for the votes that are up here, these voting sessions, I think the things that can actually clip are either the avatars or the names. You can try the avatars with a vote. And if that doesn't work, you can just basically click on the name. And that should do it too. But what should happen is that there should be one standout. Let's say I'm going to ungroup this just to kind of get out there. Let's say that this one is the winner. I'm going to just give it that a color of yellow again. Ooh, maybe not that yellow. That's a little garish. Let's do maybe darkish, bluish something. There we go. Okay, so that's our winner. So this is something that once we get that done, we're going to take this and we're going to copy and paste into this box what is in all of these. And again, I'm just copying the instructions, but you kind of get the idea. I'll just do this here. Copy pasta, there we go. Sometimes it helps to kind of do breakpoints, and I might just go ahead and put this to the left so it's a little bit more readable. So, okay, this is what the problem statement should probably look like, but it's not going to be these directions. It's going to be what somebody types out. So this is going to be your top voted problem statement. Then you're going to be done for this hour. Take a break, relax, kind of take a nap about rainbows, rummage through the fridge, get something. But the important thing is after every hour or close to it, your team should be taking a break. Don't try to power through every single hour to get done. Please don't do that. Try to avoid it if you can. And do go up and take a break about at least 10 minutes and get ready for hour number 2. And I should have said hour number 1. I'm in hour number 1. We were in a preparation session before. Okay, so the first hour of your virtual design sprint is going to be about concentrating on long-term goals related to your challenge. So this first one, again, is a practice session. It is optional, but this takes you into focus and tries to figure out what your personal and professional goals are going to be in the near term, or at least in the future. And usually in the design sprint, the long-term goal is set on 2 years. But since the original publication, the authors have kind of relaxed that a little bit, and so have I. So I try to look at things from different time stamps or different lengths of time to get a better picture and a different frame of mind around what you're essentially shooting for. So let's say that I'm in this first row, and I'm trying to think of my long-term goals. In 6 months, I'm going to go ahead and start here and say in 6 months, I'm going to what for my professional goal? I am going to launch a new product about experimentation, which I am. So that's a nice little thing I'm doing. Now I'm going to think in a year, how is that going to look? So I will have a fully running consultancy around experimentation. So I'm actually like upgrading my business that I'm thinking about. So 1 year from now, I'm going to have this. And then you can just go move backwards if you want. So if I wanted to go after these particular goals and this sort of time frame in 1 year and 7 days in a week, what do I have to do? It's like I'll write an article about micro experimentation. So I can start getting my thoughts on paper, or I would say paper, but digital paper. And I know how to write, so I'll put my articles there. And you just keep on doing this until you get to the utopian version, the best for a possible forever outcome. And then once you get all those done, a couple people can volunteer and kind of explain what they're thinking about doing over the course of the next, say, 6 months to 5 years to utopia. And you might find there's some parallels here that may be interesting for you and your teammates to know about. So this is just an exercise to get you prepared for what you're going to do with the long-term goal. So after you do that, you're going to take 5 minutes just to review. You're going to put your problem statement from before. So usually the facilitator, co-facilitator will do this. Usually it's co-facilitator's domain, but you're going to go back over here, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to zoom back over here and put it, wait, where am I? Right there. I'm going to put it right there in that problem statement. So now I have the problem statement where it's supposed to be. And this is usually after you come back from break. It's still fresh in people's minds, but as you're going to start seeing, this is going to be a regular exercise or a regular thing that we'll do in every hour of the Global Virtual Design Sprint. And the reason why we're doing that is so that people don't lose sight of the original intent of why you're doing a design sprint. It's very easy to get lost in the weeds when you're looking to do something like this, like getting into all the exercises and losing the bigger picture. So this is meant to be anchoring for every single hour you're going to be doing the GVDS. So this is basically for reference. And again, we have a spot here early on. So after the problem statement, if there's still questions that people have, they can safely put those here. And then you can address them if you'd like, or you can table them, but try to keep things from 5 to 10 minutes and make sure that your hour is kept to doing the main exercises. From there, we're going to do, oh, look at this. It's the same thing we just did on a personal level. Now we're going to think about what we're doing for this particular challenge for the same timeline. So we're going to get optimistic and ask, where do you want to be in a week, 6 months, a year, even 2 years? Well, it shouldn't say 2 years, or even 5 years, since I nixed 2 years. I thought it was too close. Let's do 5 years. For now, in relation to the challenge you've chosen. So you're going to put all those answers, but this time around, you're actually going to hold a vote. So after you get done putting in all your answers as a team, you're going to have one vote to put on the 7 days, the 30 days, the 6 months, 1 year, and 5 year columns, as well as Utopia. And you're going to use those, you're going to capture those for later on. So you're going to be using those. So make sure that when you capture all of those, if you're the facilitator or co-facilitator after the vote, these are going to live on as artifacts that you'll be referring to later on. Okay? Then step 2 is kind of the converse, where I should say the reverse, where you were being optimistic. Now you're kind of looking at the potential outcomes. And sprint questions are a tricky thing because sometimes they're geared towards solutions. And what you should be doing is writing questions that correspond to problems. Over here on the left-hand side, I've included a really good article that was written, I think, last year, that basically goes into how to craft how to craft a good sprint question. And down here I have some examples of how you can encourage the citizens of our municipality to eat healthier. These all come from the article, but these kind of showcase, and again, some of those are pretty lengthy, but these showcase a way to write design sprints in a way that is relevant to the problem and doesn't really speak to the solution, like, can we get this done, or is this the right way of doing things? It's asking the open-ended questions, so there could be many possibilities and many answers. But these are the kinds of questions in the format you should think about writing them in the sprint questions part. Now, if this doesn't come naturally to you, the way this is kind of written, and you're kind of you're wondering, am I doing this right or doing this wrong? Again, I'll remind you that this doesn't need to be right. This is just basically understanding how to do this and learning how to do this in a proper fashion. So even if it doesn't feel right and you're kind of a little bit lost, just go through the motions, see what other people have written, and learn from one another. And again, once you kind of take 3 to 5 minutes to write out the long or the sprint questions that you're talking about here, then you're going to vote on the top 3 and move forward with those. Okay? So the next one is to make a bold prediction about your virtual design sprint. So this is something where it is a moonshot, something where in the very beginning, depending on your understanding of the challenge, what the team's kind of thinking about at first, what you said in your problem statement, irregardless of what your long-term goal states, what is going to be your prediction for where this is going to go? What we are doing is basically providing this entire effort with a vision of where we see things going. And if you want, you can hold another vote and vote on it, but it's just to get an idea of where everyone's head's at in terms of a forward-thinking vision for your challenge. And once again, you're done. So go take a break. You may not exactly want to drink a lot of alcohol like this person's doing, but type out any notes, any questions, post pictures of thoughts. You can put those down here if you want to. But again, I encourage 10 to 15 minute breaks just to basically get off the computer and stretch and get away from staring at a screen, which does get taxing for a while. But once you're all kind of done with your break, you can come back and we start hour number 2. See, I got that right this time. In hour number 2, we're going to be making a map. But the first thing we're going to do, and again, this is an optional exercise, is we're going to be kind of going into how we make our own comfort food. So the first thing we want to do is use this image search over here to do a search for one of your favorite comfort foods. So let's say pancakes would be mine. So I put pancakes and I'm looking there and that's not good. That's pretty good. It's like, oh yes, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there. And I'm going to put it right in my spot right there. Maybe that's a good place right there. I'll put it right next to it, actually, not over the note. And I'm going to write buckwheat pancakes. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Pancakes with homemade syrup. This is not fair. This is way too late. Everyone's sleeping and I can't make this stuff. And strawberries. Woo. Yum. So now that I put my favorite comfort food there, I put my name and my avatar there, when it's time to kind of everyone's put their stuff in, I'm going to go, look, if you want some favorite comfort food, this is buckwheat pancakes with syrup and strawberries, and here's how you do it. You get your strawberries from the farmer's market. You basically, it looks like there's butter here too, so I'm going to get the butter from the market too if I can. The pancake recipe, basically you make it and then you put it in the freezer the day before. Oh, that's freezer. The refrigerator. You want to put it in the freezer and never eat it. The refrigerator. And there's a certain recipe where you use a little bit of buttermilk, lots of butter, raw materials like flour and other stuff, and kind of mix it all in. And you basically cook it on very low heat on an iron griddle, and there's nothing like it. And I can safely say that I feel guilty afterwards. I have to run 3 days after I eat it. So this is an example of what your team can do. Put in your comfort food, but put in something that you know how to make, and then explain how you go about making it. And hopefully you don't put your pancakes in the freezer like I just admitted, apparently. So that should take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. Again, you can skip it if you want. If you're all business, you can just go, no, not for me. Now down here, we have a space that we just got done with long-term goals. So this is where you would kind of take from the previous hour and put it into here, your top sprint questions as well, and your problem statement. And again, what you are doing is seeing if this is starting to come together. Does any of this deviate in any way? Meaning that, do some of the sprint questions go off the reservation and don't quite align with the problem statement? Or does nothing in the long-term goals kind of align with the problem statement? Or is there a couple of them that seem to kind of say, okay, that how might we question could probably answer something in there, just to do some observations and see where things are. And again, if your person in charge of updating the mural is putting these in, then you can have that done in advance, and people can kind of look at these and say, okay, well, that's where that is. But once you kind of do a little bit of observation with this particular part, you're going to move over to step one, which is first we're going to think about the target audience. Now, if you've done problem framing, this should be pretty simple. But if you haven't done that, you just basically have the challenge in mind, and you felt like you, maybe before you indicated that you weren't quite sure of the audience, well, this is a place where you can kind of take your stab at who you think is going to be the target audience. Once you figure that out, you want to make sure you just get one. So your audience, it could be, let's say they are going to be Comic-Con attendees. So that's pretty vague, but it's at least a start. So now in step two, you're going to be taking this audience that you just kind of pulled out of step one as your focus, and you're going to go through the experience path they currently have. So this is how they currently achieve their goals, not where you think they're going to take them, but this is your understanding of what they currently do to achieve the goal that corresponds to your particular challenge or your problem statement. So let's say this particular goal that this Comic-Con attendee has is walks away with 5 signatures of his favorite artists, right? So he's there for signing his comic books and meeting movie stars. So he's basically there to do some business. So where he starts, maybe his starting point is like the attendee, I'm keeping him or her very general, walks through the front door of the stadium with a ticket, because that's why he's getting in. Now, all 6 of these steps here are meant to be fairly high level. So when you're kind of putting out their experience path and what they're going to be doing, you're basically going to be thinking of what they do from start to end in terms of how they currently go through to achieve the goal that corresponds to your challenge. Every one of these is going to be different. It does not matter if it's right or wrong. What you are doing is going through the exercise like before and learning how this is doing. So usually the best way to do these sort of experience paths is to start at the end. I start at the beginning sometimes, but you can start at the end. What's the goal that he or she is seeking? And then go into this particular one right here and say, well, where do they start if they want to go here, and then just fill in the paths. Everyone's going to have their own kind of swim lane here. And once you get done with kind of filling all these out, and it usually takes about anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes, you're going to do 2 votes. And there's purposeful as to why you're doing this. So the first one is to basically go through and vote on the column side. So you're going to vote on the one starting point that seems to be the most valuable or the most relevant. Same thing with the ending point. And each column you're going to vote on a particular step. Now sometimes it's really easy. You can basically vote on one straight across and just put all your votes here. But you'll be getting 8 votes. So you put a vote on any particular step in a column. Sometimes you can vote for multiple steps in a single column if you think they're related and you see your path kind of deviating from here. But what you are kind of doing is choosing a path or voting a path that you think would be optimal for the person that's in the start as well as where they're going to end. These may differ, but don't worry about that. So once all the votes go in, so there's one vote for each of these columns, that's the first vote. So everyone will get 8 votes and put one vote in any of these columns here for one of these cards. The next thing you're going to do is vote on an entire line. So you're going to vote on individual cards, but then you're going to look at these paths and say, which of these paths in general, like overall, seems to be the best approach to kind of understanding what people currently do in the situation, the context related to the challenge. So you can usually vote on names, you can vote on avatars, but that will be a separate vote. So after you do all of the cards here, then once you see those results, then you'll vote on which particular one you think people should go forward as the primary one. So once you make that vote, that'll be the single path experience. Then from there, you're going to move over to step number 3. Now there's 2 parts to this. You're going to put your top voted experience path here, the one that just got the vote, the line vote by everybody, like which one's the top line. And then you're going to take your top voted cards that you saw in other spaces and first put them here. So say down here, this was, let's just kind of highlight this one. And let's say that this one, and I'm going to call it, you don't have to color this all the same color. I'm just doing it for the sake. So this one was the top voted one. Okay. That one is the one I'm going to be putting over in this space. So that's number 3. Let's say number 2. That number 2 path is here. But when I did the individual card vote, I noticed that there is a card, and let me ungroup these so that they aren't all smashed together. Let's say in this particular one, this was the primary one, but there was a card here and a card here and a card here that got 3, 4, 5 votes, but they weren't part of the main flow. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to take these 3 cards. I'm going to put them over here in this main space down here. I'm going to put them right in here, right? Now these cards are going to fit somewhere in here. Maybe they don't take over because this path is going to stay where it is. But maybe these cards, maybe this one fits right around here. Like maybe it's a situation where there's a consideration where they could do this path, then this step, and this step. Or maybe it's a combination where on this one, from step 3, they can go to multiple step 4s. Maybe there's a whole bunch under here, so they can go to different possibilities. What you're going to kind of see is a mashup of your top path that you want people to take, and also the other cards that either influence or add to the experience path. And it's going to be a little messy, so there'll be more room underneath here where the cards go, so they may not be aligned. But what you are doing is kind of taking the best of the best from all the paths and putting them into the space. And if you want to, you can kind of take this whole thing if you want, and you can move it down into here so that you have even more room. You can put things on top, on in front, whatever you'd like to do. Once you get something that resembles something that looks pretty good in terms of including all the major components of a starting and an end and all the steps that you need to get there in an experience path, you are done. Go outside, enjoy the weather. Don't worry so much about what's going on here. If it's raining or there's a tornado or an earthquake, better stay inside, maybe get to a shelter. But this is another chance to do a quick break. I will say that this hour is probably going to take longer, so this break may be delayed a bit, or you may skip it altogether, which is okay. Just don't do too many of them. But once you're done with kind of doing the map, the experience map, you're going to move over into hour number 3, which is a bit easier than what you just experienced. So let's get into that. Okay, so in our 3rd hour, we are going right into picking a target, and we don't waste any time. We're going to be looking at the body of work that we've done to date, the problem statement, long-term goals, the sprint questions, and the experience map you just got done, seeing how the entire flow of work has been happening and how you're seeing the evolution of how the team is approaching the problem, and also how we're going to interpret not only what we're doing, but also the questions we're going to be trying to solve for and what we see the current experience map looking like. And we're going to go into organizing, categorizing, and voting on the how might we. So we're going to be taking all of the how might we's from all the interviews and everything else that we've kind of gotten from, say, like our problem statements. We're going to put them all here, so they're going to be just all collected. Kind of like copy and paste, put them in here. There may be a lot, especially if you have a lot of interviews. bring them down into this categorization model down here, similar to what we did in a previous exercise. And then try to get the top how might we voted cards. So you want to aim for 3. Use the index down here just like we did before. So if there's maybe 5 cards that come out on top on your vote, you can put them over on the right if you find they're more interesting and people are using the mouse to indicate that, or less interesting if you put them over here. But eventually when you get those top 3, you're going to copy and paste them into these semi-transparent circles in step 2. So what you're going to be doing again is looking at the how might we's that are listed here, and you're going to be looking at your experience map and going, if I read that how might we correctly, it seems like it kind of fits in the experience map right around here, and you're just going to drop it right in the experience map. So let's say the how might we that we're thinking about, and we type in, this one says, how might we have attendees try out a new app? Where does this particular how might we sit? Maybe it sits right around here. We're just going to drop it. Well, I'll bring it up to the front. So it's going to be kind of dropped here. You'll do the same thing with the other how might we's. Maybe this one is more relevant at the end. This one probably is the same place. It's right around here. Maybe it's right here. And you're going to start to see where the focus seems to be. Like the how might we's kind of puts a little bit of like emphasis on particular steps. Okay, this one seems to be the right spot, but this one seems to be another spot, and this one seems... So let's figure out where should this main target be. And then you can do a mouse vote where people kind of put their mouses over particular spots on this map that makes sense. And the team eventually will give you an idea of where that main target is. So let's say the main target is this one right here. Depending on where the votes have been from the previous steps, you may think that there's something on the map that supports this main target. In this particular card, for example, that's going to support whatever you do in the main target. So these two are linked based on how this flow goes. You may have to have up to 2 supporting targets, but this is for a way for your team to kind of look at the map and say, okay, these are the 2 spots, this primary one and a secondary one, where they're going to be influencing how we're looking at and iterating on an idea later on. Now, instead of a break, this is the end of the day. So there are 2 particular activities you want to, as a team, you want to be involved with. The first is to start scheduling your interviews. So on day 1, after the first 3 hours, you probably have a good idea of who is going to be perfect for an interview when you start showing them what you prototype. Now, again, if you can't find people that are representative of your target audience, you can ask other participants in the GVDS to kind of be the person that they talk to about this particular product. They may not necessarily give you answers that are informed, but again, this is about learning. So as a last resort, you can put something up in the Slack channel to say, hey, my team is looking for people to kind of walk through our prototype at the end of the week. It deals with this particular issue. Is anyone interested? This is something also that you should not regulate to one person. Everyone on the team could schedule interviews, but usually the researcher is the lead for this. But in my experience, 2 or 3 people kind of getting involved with the interviews is always a good thing. The other thing you want to do for day 2 is to casually research existing solutions in the market. So if you reflect back on the map and what you kind of focused on, what are some things in the market that kind of handle this already? What are some solutions that are already existing that correspond to this particular step? Now, you will do it in session, but if you can do that in advance, the second day of the mural should be up. So try to find time to do both, but it's not required. It's something that definitely will save you a lot of time, pain, and anguish if you're able to kind of slot some time to get those 2 things done. And that is it. That's a walkthrough of day 1 in its entirety of the virtual design sprint that we do in the GVDS. Again, if you have any questions about any of this, I know I went through it really fast, post those in Slack, send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can post on this video, I think, after I get done with it. Thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you for day number 2. Bye-bye.